Welcome to the Nurturing Fathers Podcast, a show dedicated to helping men succeed at the most challenging and rewarding job they'll ever have, being a dad. Your hosts are Mark Perlman, the creator and founder of the Nurturing Fathers program, and his son, Corey Perlman, who facilitates the program at the Atlanta Federal Penitentiary and is also a father of 2 young children. It's time to add tools to your Nurturing Fathers toolbox. Mark and Corey, take it away.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Nurturing Fathers podcast. My name is Corey Perlman.
And Mark Perlman.
I'm supposed to say your name.
I'm sorry, I'm stealing your thunder.
Good Lord.
Let's start again.
Mark Perlman.
Thank you.
All right. This one is all about work and how we intersect our lives with work and, in particular, our parenting and being a dad while we still have jobs and things to do outside of the home. So, Dad, I always like to start out with a little bit of context as to why do we think this is important enough to have an episode on, and what's your take on fathering and work?
Well, I think work is a very significant part to the male ego and men. We see ourselves as providers and breadwinners, and it's important and meaningful to us. With that being said, it is also the single biggest reason why we don't spend more time with our spouses, children, and families. Work is the single greatest reason men give for not having quite the time they would like with their families.
I think you're spot on, man. It's like, that seems to be the biggest casualty to a good relationship with our kids is work gets in the way. Busy dads equal non-present dads.
Yeah, and some fathers are absent. In fact, I'll use my own father's example. He was a wonderful man. He was a nurturing man. In many ways, he was the most nurturing parental figure. But he was so committed to raising our standard of living. He worked 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, and he just wasn't around much. So my mother and grandmother were the primary parents in the home. And when he got there, he was not only tired, but I don't think he quite knew how to even insert himself into that because it was so dominated by my mother and grandmother. So work in his case took him away from us in a very significant way. And it's true for many men today. And I think the key factor here is time. The things we value in our lives are the things we give time to. Time is a very valuable commodity, and there's only so much of it. So those things that we value the most really need our time. So it's a question of time management and time allocation. And that's the way we deal with it in the Nurturing Fathers program. So the question is, what are the things you value most, and what is the kind of time commitment you can make to those things? Because the converse is, if I value my marriage, but I'm spending no time on it or little time with my wife, don't be surprised when that marriage begins to fade and lose some of its punch.
I mean, I completely agree with you. I think that, we have to prioritize the time. I think a lot of people who are listening to this will say, we all get the fact that we got to prioritize our relationships. I think that's important. I think the hard part, or the rubber meets the road, is the reality of the situation. I have a lot of friends that literally go to work at 8 a.m. and they're home at 6:30, 7 o'clock. And they just, especially during the week, don't get to see their kids very often. So I think one of the things I think we can honestly say, and I'd be interested in your perspective on this as well, is there's no right or wrong way to be a present dad, meaning that if I travel a lot, so that means I'm gone a lot. I have friends that travel more than I do who have great relationships with their children. I have friends that work a lot of hours who have a very present and intentional relationship with their kids. It's just about how they utilize the time that they do have with their kids. Is that right?
Yeah, it's quantity and quality.
Yeah.
When I talk to men above the age of 20, 25, all the way up to the 50s, 60s and later, about what they would have liked more from their dads, the single issue that comes up first is time, that they would have liked more. Just as I gave the example of my father, that was a generation that was committed to try and build a middle-class lifestyle for their family, and God bless them because they did. But that took a lot of time away from the rest of family life and our ability to spend time together, child to father. So the question comes down to this: if time is the baseline, the quality of the time comes next because it's real important. That's what Nurturing Fathers is also all about. But you've got to be there. Like you said on one of the other podcasts just recently, Corey, you show up to your children's school once or twice a week. You show up to performances. You show up to activities. You show up. That's golden. I used to look out into the audience if I was a star in a school play and see my mother and grandmother sitting there, and I'd always look for that third seat and that third presence. And at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, there was no chance my father was going to be there. But it didn't stop me from looking. So, the hope was there. So, with work being what it is, one of the things I think you can do very strategically, in terms of like strategic planning, is each father can write a job description of what it requires to be the father that he feels he wants to be and his children deserve. What kind of activities, what kind of time. And with that in mind, just a list of showing up where, when, and how, putting them to bed at night, whatever that might be. How do we manage then to work out a schedule of time and family involvement that feeds the important parts of our lives? Those things we value are the things that deserve our time. So if we make a list of what we value, my father's job description is A, B, C, D, E. The question is, how can we allocate the time for those things? That's both a challenge and it's an opportunity not to overlook the time that's important and later not have the relationships or the outcomes that we would have liked.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a couple of things are by choice for us, and then the other things are just sort of, in some ways, the situations that are presented and how we deal with them. So I often talk in the beginning of just saying that we make the choice of prioritizing the importance of our children over everything else. And I will say that I haven't made a lot of good decisions in my life, but the one that I made early on in my career was just that I wasn't willing to sacrifice my relationship with my kids for the success of my business. So I've always known that whatever definition of success you want to call it, I could have done more. I still could do more, speaking engagements, book writing, career stuff, but it would be in sacrifice for me to my relationship with my kids. And so I just always wanted to prioritize that over whatever I deemed successful. So my definition of success for me was the relationship I have with my kids more so than the career that I have.
Yeah. But it's also a question of balance because you're not sacrificing your career, but you don't want to sacrifice your time with your children. We only go through that once with our kids and we laugh about it, but they grow up so quickly. I look at Talia now at age 9. She's like a preteen. It's like I remember when you put her in my arms for the first time as a baby. It's not that long ago. So, my caution to us as men is not to let work, it's not interfere with our family life. We got to do what we got to do, but be conscious of how you can use time to make sure that the things that need to be nurtured by you have the time for you to nurture. Let me give you 2 examples from my own life. And this goes back a ways, before Corey was born. When my first son was in the womb, we were pregnant with his brother, Jamie. We were living in Europe for a year. And I had a best friend here in the United States, Joe, and he was having a baby at the exact same time, a month away. They would not let him in the delivery room. 1971 would just not let him in the delivery room. So I'm sitting there in Aix-en-Provence, France, and saying, wow, I'm going to do this once, twice, 3 times in my life. I need to be there. Moreover, my wife, who's about to give birth, needs me there. I think we need to do this as a team. So I did not go home to the hospitals. I did not go home to grandma. We stayed there, and I was present for the birth in a place called a birthing center that was specifically for birth, and they welcomed fathers in. Well, I never thought back and regretted that. That was one of the most profound times and moments of my life, the birth of my first child. Now that's changed. Fathers are welcome, and 95, 98% of us are there. But that's one time I sacrificed one option for another option. It was important. The other example I would give is when I was about to conceive and write the Nurturing Fathers program, 1997, I had a full-time job as executive director of a family counseling center. That was a big job, but I negotiated with the board 4 10-hour days, Monday through Thursday, and the 5th day, Friday. I put pen to paper and wrote all day. And over a year, I wrote what became the Nurturing Fathers program, which was one of the most important and creative ventures in my life. So I made time and I made arrangements for me to have room for that in my life. And I'm so thankful that I did, because that program perhaps would never have been born if I didn't insist on a 4-day week, which to some degree was unheard of. I said to myself, they're not going to go for that. That's crazy. But they did. They valued my time there, and they knew I would do the best job I could in 4 days. And there it was, every Friday, time to write.
So I think it's, what we term in our household as the non-negotiables, and everybody's is different because everybody's careers are different. So I have a different career than, I use my friend Todd as an example. So, Todd has the kind of the typical career job where he goes in at, like I said, early and comes home late, where I travel a lot. So I might be gone 3 or 4 days at a time, but then I'm home and then I'm at the house during the time that I work. But my non-negotiables are different than his. My non-negotiables, I don't travel. I traveled one time during Halloween. You remember that because I was with you in Las Vegas for an event, and I hated every moment of it. I hated being away from Halloween. So now it's a non-negotiable for me that I don't travel on Halloween or some of the other big holidays or the kids' birthdays, things of that nature. And Todd's non-negotiables are more on the weekends. It's just like guys ask him to go out or whatever during a Saturday or play golf. He says, no, my non-negotiable is Saturday and Sunday are with my kids right now at the stage of life that I'm in. And I'm gone all week, and this is my time with them. Another non-negotiable for me when I'm home is making sure that Friday mornings, as I mentioned in a different podcast, I take my kids to school. That's our little routine together. And then in the evenings, we try to spend 15 minutes each individually with each kid. So I would say, a good tactical thing for people to take away, or guys to take away, which we all have limited amount of time, is making non-negotiables where that time with your kids does not get sacrificed for anything else. Whatever that means to you, we stick with it. And no matter what comes up in life, that's a non-negotiable.
Yeah, I like that. I like that concept, and I think it's very, very valuable. Very valuable. So I think one of the non-negotiables to me to be there for the birth of my children, as it turned out, and you wouldn't want to miss it. It was profound. I think staying home with a child sometimes if they're sick, if mom's got an important job too, and she is in part a breadwinner or responsible outside the home as well. A lot of those things are negotiated now between mom and dad. They're not given anymore. And it's important, nurturing to stay home with a child. I made the effort to be at your tennis matches and your brother's soccer matches. I love those. I miss them occasionally, but more often than not, I arranged with my time to be able to do them. So those are just examples. It's not the way everybody has to think or the same thing to be valued.
Or just as a reminder too of your non-negotiables, it's not just when the relationship with the spouse is the same as well. So when you got divorced and your time got split, now your time just got cut in half, if not more, with the time with us. So then the non-negotiables become even more important. So then it became Wednesday nights and Friday nights, right?
Right.
So I may have not seen you Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, or whatever it was, but I saw you Wednesday night and Friday night. And it's funny, we were just making a joke about this. 99 out of 100 times, that was a non-negotiable. The only time it wasn't is when you hit that guy on the bike, which I still remember to this day because you didn't take me, and I was very torn by that. And but little do I know, yeah, you're the one who probably was more traumatized than I was by accidentally hitting a guy with his car, hit the guy on the bicycle.
So what are some of these really important father times? Let's just kind of go over that again, maybe sort of almost in like the universal sense. I would say childbirths are, things like birthdays, I would think are vacations, and to take vacations that are really family focused, nurturing to the whole family.
I take Tally because she's old enough right now. Because again, I travel a lot. But on daddy-daughter trip, once a year, she goes on a city, and I got that from my friend Dan Thurman, who travels. Now, there's another example. He travels a lot more than I do, 70 times a year, or 90, or whatever it is. But he's got a great relationship with his kids, and part of it was super intentional that they travel with him. Same with my friend Ross Bernstein. They go with him on these trips. You got to find a way. Everybody's career is different, right? Everybody's life is different, but you still got to find a way to involve your kids.
I think showing up at school to meet the teacher. In my father's generation, they never knew who the teacher was or showed up at school. We started doing that. Corey, I know you do it very actively now, but to know who the teacher is and let the teacher know that you care and are involved in your child's education. But more so, this is a fact, actually. They researched this. When a father shows up in a classroom, say in elementary school, not only does his child show a burst of performance that day, but many of the kids in that class show a burst of performance just because of the father's presence. So we can't underestimate our importance in showing up in these situations. And I will let you define audience for yourself, those ones that are most important. But once you do define them, sit down with your spouse, or if there is no spouse, just with yourself, and create a schedule that carves out those periods where you will devote your time to the things most important to you, your family, and children.
Two other things to think about that I constantly think about because I'm really terrible at it is distracted time. This day and age, just to them, it is not quality time when we're on our phones. It's not quality time when we're in front of the TV, even though they may say it is. But the times that I think we all remember most, I never remember any show that I watched with you, Dad, or even really barely any movie that I watched with you or video game that we played. But I remember, taking trips, going to SeaWorld together, playing the quarter game together, playing tennis together, playing basketball together, eating El Adobe together. But the experience is way more than the technology. So let's keep that time as offline as we possibly can.
Boy, offline is an issue for this generation. It never was when I was growing up. But if you're sitting down with your daughter talking about a bullying situation in school, or if you're sitting down with your son talking about grades or homework, that TV needs to be put off. That digital item, the cell phone or whatever, needs to be muted for now. That should be the single focus, because just think of the opposite. If the child, or you're always glancing at the TV, and we do, it's a magnet, or the phone is ringing, say, "Go, just 1 minute, let me catch this," or "I just have to, I'll be right back." The message is clear that a dad is not paying attention, is not that involved
And not
in
as
what we're
important, you don't
talking
feel as
about.
important.
The child doesn't feel as important, as valued. So those times that we value, I think what Corey is making a good point, need to be digitally free time and our attention where it needs to be. There's a discipline to that, but I think it really pays off, because from the child's perspective, the message is, number one here. What we're doing here is most important, and I have dad's full attention.
So this is a great activity to do that I'm borrowing from a curriculum called Positive Parenting, and we'll put in the show notes the name because it was a great curriculum that Jess and I took. But she calls it mind, body, and soul time. And I think we just call it intentional time with each of our children, but 10 or 15 minutes every single day. And here's the key point to this, which I think is really cool. They get to decide what we do. The only rule is it's not technology. But each day that I get to do this, and it's not every day, obviously I travel and things of that nature, but when I'm there and when Jess is there and we have our special time together, they get to choose what we do. And sometimes it's not what I want to do, but that's okay. It's what they want to do. And it's super fun. And I'll tell you something, this is the craziest thing, and I swear to God, this is true. The behavior on the nights that they've gotten this centered time with each of us is so much better than the nights that we don't do it. And it's for the simple fact that their bucket is full. Their attention bucket is full. When their attention bucket is not full from either me or Jess, well, they're going to fill it with something else. Right. And they're going to poke at us or annoy us or drive us crazy because they're looking for that attention.
And acting out is sometimes their way of trying to get that attention or make up for it. So that's a really good point. Another whole dimension of this is the workplace itself. And there is a whole science and field of study that is about family-friendly workplaces, or father and family-friendly workplaces. We have the advent now of taking your child to school day, or taking your daughter to school week, or whatever it is in your community. It's hugely important because they see where dad or mom goes every day and disappears to, and what that work environment is about. It also gives them concrete understanding of what kind of options and opportunity lie in their future in terms of the different fathers talking about what they do. That is very informative for their growth and development. And it's a commitment to the child and their school. The other thing that we are just doing actually in a week or so in Sarasota, where I live, is we have a Take Your Dad to School week. And each school sets it up, either donuts for dad in the morning, lunch with dad, talk about what kind of dad does for work, play games, do some creative things. But dads come in, and we have in a 45,000 student population had almost 10,000 fathers show up.
That's awesome.
For the last few years. And it's been going on for quite a while, and each school gladly puts this on their marquee and invites the dads in. And it just transforms the whole school experience when a bunch of men are there to welcome the kids and help them with that particular school day. And there are policies and practices that businesses can make, and I've been involved in this and very strongly support this, that are father and family friendly. Dads need time off when their baby is born, first one especially, but others. We have family leave time for moms. Family leave time for dads is there, but not always as available and not always used. But there's a tremendous value to having a week or two or three or more off to welcome that baby, take care of mom's needs who's just given birth, and to get that family on the right foot setting. So the workplace can establish these policies that help the family and ultimately make better employees. That's the key. The companies that provide these benefits and support fathers in their families and don't make it a painful fight between work and family, but ease it a little bit with those kind of policies, end up having much better attention and much more better employee performance.
And I'll kind of wrap my last point up with just really the focus on this is work and time. And I think about, the excuses that we make sometimes for time. And I remember sitting in the group at the federal prison and talking to the guys about time and work, and these guys are saying, well, gosh, I was telling them about some of the challenges that my friends who have 9-to-5 jobs face. And these guys are looking at me with these kind of strange looks on their face, and they're like, we don't have much sympathy for them because even though we've made mistakes, we don't even have the 5 to 7. We have nothing, but yet they try to figure out ways to connect with their kids through visiting hours, through phone calls and all that. And so it was just a stark reminder to me that it doesn't matter the situation, how much we work, what our work demands of us, the time that it takes from this, it doesn't matter. We still have to figure out what those time frames are going to be with our kids. And the thing that I always tell my guys is we can make this as complicated as we possibly want. We can try to say everything right. We can try to do everything right. But at the end of the day, if we just show up and we just spend as much quality time as we possibly can with our kids, the rest is icing on the cake, in my humble opinion.
Absolutely. And just to repeat something I mentioned before, because again, it'll put a little exclamation point on this. The thousands of groups of grown men that I've sat with and said, what is the thing you wish you had less of from your father? Hitting and yelling is the answer. What is the thing you wish you had more of from your father? Time.
There you go.
Thank you all. Love to have this conversation with you and support your efforts for what you're doing as a father. They pay off more than we will ever know.
I haven't mentioned this in the last few episodes, so I'll mention it. We have a Nurturing Fathers Facebook page, facebook.com/Nurturing Fathers. Would love to hear from you there. Would love to hear some of the different unique and creative ways that you find spending some ritual time with your children. This is on podcast platforms all over, iTunes and different spots. So if you wouldn't mind leaving us a kind review or saying a comment there, we'd appreciate that. Or just share it out to other dads that you think would really enjoy it. We'd really appreciate that.
And it's all under the Nurturing Fathers banner. Nurturing Fathers is the connection.
It is the connection, yes. That's what pays the bills. Nurturing Fathers, yes. You're sponsored by Nurturing Fathers. All right, everybody. See you later. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Nurturing Fathers podcast. Have questions or comments? Join the conversation at facebook.com/Nurturing Fathers or email us at nurturingfathers@gmail.com.